the retention rate you guys had of people keeping people into the contest, knew that they were having, like, if you're having fun doing something and you enjoy it, like, you're gonna stay. And plus, if it was like if they, if you compared your old results to this new way of, or new approach, and it was like a 2, 3, 4% difference, you'd probably be like, I could go either way. Depends on the
Yeah.
person. But this is such a dramatic jump in the other direction. It's like, wow, like, this takes you into where, yeah, you're right. It's not a controlled study, but the numbers aren't lying. The numbers
Right.
aren't lying.
Yep.
It it's super cool. And you get onto, and this is the next thing kind of I want to talk about, is kind of, now you've got all this information, you had this data, you had people enjoy the diet, people exercising, people having fun and feeling good. So when people want to get into a low carb diet or carnivore diet, how do you usually start them off? Because I feel, once it's getting popular, it's getting more popular, carnivore, keto, all that stuff. Once they're like, okay, I'm going to take this first step, how do you direct them to kind of where to go? Is it like you were saying, like, we're just going to give you, like, here's some examples of some meals, educate them?
Great question. And the podcast host in me is going to ask you the same question. So you get ready, dude.
You
Want to
got
know
it.
how you coach your
Yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah, for sure.
Um, and I do just one last comment on the weight loss
Sure.
contest. You're right. Like the numbers were great. The also like astounding thing was like the numbers were great, and my energy's way better, and I don't take naps, and my kids' behavior all of a sudden is like way better, and my joints all of a sudden feel better. Like there was all these other stories that you'd hear of like the weight loss was great. It was awesome, but it was almost like these other things are even like way better. Like my husband started doing this because I'm doing this, and he just lost 15 pounds. And like all the other stories you heard were so awesome. And yeah, we have a tendency to want lots of people to do that, and people have questions on where they should get started. And so I think the easiest place to start um, is a little bit unexpected for most people, where they think you and I are here to take things away from people. And that's normally what people are used to as far as dieting. If they've worked with a trainer before, it's like, okay, you can't have soda anymore. You can't have sandwiches anymore. You can't do all these things. And it's like this overwhelming thing of all the things I can't do. And of course, the only thing the person's thinking of is like, well, I can't do all these things. They're not thinking like, what things can you do and what things would you enjoy? And so it's obviously individual and depends on the person, but generally speaking, I will say I want to start by putting more things in, especially if the person is used to depleting and is in a depleted state. Maybe they've done dieting, they're counting calories, they're worried about, the amount of food that they're eating. I want that person to, for the first time, maybe in their life, to actually feel like really full and satiated, and let that be the starting point. So I almost always will try to encourage somebody to increase the amount of animal products that include proteins and fats, add that in, and do not try to restrict it whatsoever. Don't be, worried if you're eating, a triple cheeseburger and you think that might be too much, or you're eating 8 eggs where you're only eating 2 eggs before. Like, I want people to just kind of embrace the fact that this food is really, really good and nourishing for you, and go for it. Like when you get it, go to town, have a lot of it. Don't worry about the quantity. Um, Once that starts to happen and people give themselves that permission, you just kind of easily start to see the hunger kind of just like easily drop out. And it's not like these people have to have a tremendous amount of willpower, but eventually they just stop snacking. They're not that hungry, so they don't snack, and that is really easy. Or maybe they wake up and like they kind of forgot that they didn't eat breakfast, and it's like, yeah, like, yeah, we didn't tell you to not eat breakfast, but if you weren't that hungry, and it's way more convenient. Like you and I were talking about offline, like if you're not that hungry and you're fasting and eating in this way, like it's way convenient. You just fast. That's the easiest thing you can do. Don't eat. It's great. You're not gonna die. Like you'll be fine. And so that's why I like to start with people. Um, it's challenging for me not to like jump on people in the beginning when they're saying like, "Oh, I'm eating lots of spinach smoothies and salads, and I'm eating like big bags of almonds from Costco." Like the carnivore coach in me wants to like get in there and be like, oxalates and nuts and seeds, too many. They've got all these anti-nutrients, and like I need to bring myself back and just remember like where our starting point is for most people has to be much more achievable, and it's so much harder to build rapport with somebody when I already feel like I've got a second head growing out of my shoulders when I'm telling somebody about oxalates when they're not quite ready to hear that. So I have to bring myself back and remember to try to start with the animal products and just adding more of that in. Like I said, I'm not very good at that, and I jump in too many times when I could help people with easier information. But that's kind of what I do. I'd love to hear your approach, though. What do you
Yeah.
do?
I'm going to tell you what I do, but I want to get to that comment of, that's like, I look at what you just said. I talked about like, I want to jump in and I want to do, and I want to like say no to this, or I want to change this. That's like coaching strength training to me. Like if you're teaching a
So
deadlift,
good.
right? Okay. So your client's getting set up. All right. Make sure your foot position's correct. Put your feet in the floor, grab the bar correctly, engage your lats. And like, if they were doing that, and every rep, I was literally telling them exactly what to do, and just like, oh no, no, your hips, oh your shoulder, oh your head, your eye position, and then like before they're like, can I finish the freaking rep? Like, you know what I mean? So I agree with you. I think that's a thing that's why coaches like that's why there's a premium for coaches, because you got to know as the person that's their client, when to give information and when to kind of like hold off. I think like over coaching is an issue. It's just too much, like you were saying. But I agree 100%. I feel like not restricting them at the beginning, and that's a tough hurdle for a lot of people to get over. It is a big hurdle because they've done the Weight Watchers, they've done the Hollywood diet, the smoothie cleanse. So getting them to eat more fat, more red meat is great as much as they can tolerate. And I like what you said too. Like if they're having other things, it's okay for now. Like that's
That's okay
okay.
for now.
It's okay for now, because eventually that hunger is going to go away. You're going to feel satiated. My big thing, one of the first things I do before we do talk about adding more fat and being comfortable with it and eating till you are full. Like this is not a quote unquote restrictive diet. Yes, we're only eating meat. I get that. I get that. But I'm never like not I'm never hungry. Like I can eat if I want to eat. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. And that's like a liberating thing. It's so
Yeah.
liberating because we just want to walk around and we want to grab every single snack that we can. We're not even hungry. But how many times do you go to the fridge, open the fridge, you're not even hungry, you close the fridge, like you're like, why am I even in this thing?
Yep.
But my one thing I do, and I think I mentioned it to you before, if I have a client, the first thing that I do is we get rid of all the crap out of the pantries. Like that's a big thing. Now there's a caveat to that. If they're married, have a significant other, kid, like they don't want the wife or husband to come home and everything is gone, right? So that's like a caveat to it. But getting rid of if they, they're in this, they want to really work on it. I tell them, take their computer, take your phone, let's go through your cabinets right now. Like one of the first sessions that I do. And I'm like, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. Um, within reason. Like if it's like salad, that's a spring salad or whatever that's still in there. Okay, you can finish that. That's totally fine. But get rid of just processed junk. There's no reason for it. That's where I kind of draw the hard line. Like if you
I
really
love that.
want to do this, I draw the hard line there. But like they want to have rice, they want to whatever. That's single ingredient stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all good for now. And eventually go there. And there is also some differences too of people that just want to lose 20 pounds. And there is somebody that's trying to heal an autoimmune issue. Right.
Good
And
point.
so we gotta, people that are a severe eczema, right? Crohn's, whatever. I think those are also where you got to say, hey, like, we're going to have to eliminate and then slowly bring back in. So you're going to have to get a little strict. So it is, you mentioned it earlier, it's dependent upon the person. Now you get people on, and like I've done this too, where they get onto the diet and they feel good at first and they kind of hit some of the lulls. How do you coach people through some of the lulls?
It's like my favorite question, man. It's one of my favorite things to diagnose. When somebody's switching from, presumably a standard American diet, or they're just, maybe they've done paleo has been a little bit more popular in the last decade or so, and now they want to push towards a low carbohydrate diet. It's great because in the beginning, pretty much anything will work. Like, if you're replacing sodas with, the stevia drinks or what other people are using, that's a step. That's a good step in the right direction. If somebody is using keto bread versus regular bread. Hey, that's a step. It's not my favorite, but that's a good step in the right direction. Maybe people are changing the way they're doing their desserts and that kind of thing, and that's good. But inevitably, I always when I would do those weight loss contests, I'd go for 2 months, and this would be the topic of the middle seminar that I would do. 4 weeks in, it seems like 4 or 5 weeks is where people have gotten good results, but maybe they're starting to slow down. How can I kind of bust through this plateau? And more or less, it would be related to what you said, is like weight loss. How can I continue to lose weight? And this is where I would start to kind of realize that like the things that got you here may or may not be the things that get you past this point. And yes, like you're healthier, you're probably feeling better. You may decide this is where you want to get to and you want to stop, or you may decide you want to push past this and go a little further. I do think if you want to push past that hump and get a little further, it is going to require a new level of I guess I'll say strictness. You have to do something a little bit more to get more of the results. So really common things that I would be diagnosing. Um, two of the really easy ones would be like fruits and vegetables. If you were doing them in the beginning, fine. I don't like lumping fruits and vegetables even in the same thing, and I try to explain why both of those are different and why I try to kind of get those out. But that's one that if somebody's in a stall, I might say, let's try to diminish, um, let's get rid of that. Another one might be nuts and seeds. So again, somebody's starting, maybe they're having tons of almonds or cashews or whatever. Excuse me. And that's a good start. It's better than the crap they were having before. But I would challenge people to say, like, when you have a handful of almonds, do you ever have a handful of almonds and think like, that was good, I'm set, I'll be fine for like another few hours? Like, no, you have some and then you have some and then you have some, and now you're consuming a food that you would have never been able to consume this amount of without a tremendous amount of work, busting the shells of all these nuts, having them one at a time. Now you're having them by the handful, they're already shelled for you. Like, that's probably one that we need to dial down. I find that dairy can be problematic for some people. If they were using dairy in the beginning and that was helpful, maybe that's something to kind of dial back on, to clean up. Another thing is like, I don't think people realize how detrimental it can be to just even have sweet things, maybe not like sugar or what we would consider like high carbohydrate things, but they're sneaking in a way that's like really gradual. So it might even be down to like gum that people chew or breath mints that people have, or like if they just have a Jolly Rancher in the middle of the day or whatever. Like, if you're sneaking those sweet things in, it may not be high carbohydrate. You may be able to fit that perfectly into a low carbohydrate diet because there's so little of it. But I wonder whether even a low amount of something really sweet is triggering your insulin hormones in particular and telling your body that sweet things are incoming, and to be in more of a fat storage mode that's kind of hindering somebody's fat loss in particular. So that to me is something that can be really, really sneaky. I'm not going to say like, again, that like fruit made people obese and you should avoid that, but it's understanding that fruit is a lot different now than it used to be in the past. You can eat whatever fruit you want 365 days out of the year, regardless of where you are on the planet. And it's bred for sweetness. We don't like bitter taste. And so we've been breeding these things to be, the size of softballs, again, available all year. Is that going to make you fat? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're trying to lose weight and lose fat, that's, I think, would be something I'd really want to kind of cut down on.
Yeah, I use the pint of ice cream analogy a lot because it's also down to the person. I don't know if I ever told you the pint of ice cream analogy. Like
Can't wait.
moderators and abstainers, right? I can
Oh,
moderate and I can abstain. For me, this is me. Like, I am not a moderator. I need to abstain from it because if I open a pipe, like even think of like healthy, quote unquote, this is in quotations, air quotes, like a Halo top. That's what I was thinking. A Halo top ice cream. If I open the top and I get a spoon, the pint's gone.
yeah,
There's no other version of the story. I'm eating the whole thing. And I
yep,
think it's wild to me when people like, I'll be like hanging with somebody and they have 2 bites and they put the top back on and they put it in the freezer. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, that's enough for me. I go, wow. I am astonished because I just know myself. And like you were saying, a little bit of fruit here, a little bit of thing. I've done that. where I'll buy, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go animal based this week. And I'll have bananas, I'll have fruit, the raw honey, but then I find myself, I will knock all like it's supposed to last me the week, and I will knock it all down within a day or two. And I'm like,
Yeah.
shit, I just ate all this in one sitting and I can't
Yep.
stop.
Yep.
But so yeah, the abstaining versus just moderating. And if you can moderate it, great. But if it's a trigger for you, just get it out of there.